Hey guys, how's it going? As you can see, I lost all my hair, except my beard. The beard is super important. I need it for this. But the actual reason that I shaved all my hair off is I came down with a mild case of psoriasis, and the crazy mop of hair was not helping at all. And now that that's over, we have here at Pearson Guitars, we have this USA Fender Strat. This is in for a fret leveling. There are some pretty intense divots in the frets. So we're going to be doing a fret leveling and setup. So let us get on with that. I'm going to take the strings off and remove the neck, and I'll see you guys in a second. Okay, so I've just got the neck. One of the things that the customer wanted me to look at, there was a large gap under the nut, kind of on both sides. So I've removed the nut and I can see that there is a lot of crap in here. So yeah, here's the nut. The bottom of the nut does not look like it's shaped very nicely. And there are just... And yeah, it looks like there's a lot of glue in here. So I've got this nut file from StuMac. It's just to neaten up the insides of these slots. Still a bit. None of this is even wood. All these little shavings that you're seeing over here, that's all just this glue. Okay, that's actually looking much better. But there's no radius on the bottom of this nut, and I can already see that there is a radius on the inside of this nut slot. So I'm just going to remove some of the inside of this nut slot, of the inside of this nut, to get the 9.5 inch radius over there. So I'm not wanting to change the height of this nut at all because the strings were already pretty perfect in their height, but I'm just wanting to get the uniform radius on the bottom of this nut. So what I've done is I've just taken this 9.5 inch radius gauge and just lined it up with the ends, just so that I don't actually remove anything from the ends, but that I can remove the correct amount from the middle. I'm going to go to the other workshop and just file the bottom of this off, just so that I can get a nice radius in there. I've got my nice uniform radius on the bottom of this nut, and now there are no gaps on either side. So I'm going to go ahead and not glue this back in yet. I'd rather do the fret work first, and I'll glue this back in a little bit later. So let's start with masking the neck off. So I've just got this black marker and I'm just marking the tops of the frets so that I know how much I'm taking off. Alright. Now I'm just going to set the neck straight, and then we can start with the leveling. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be crowning the frets with this offset diamond file from StuMac. I'm only going to file until I can see the center of the fret get as thin as possible. I don't want to take that thin part away because then obviously the frets could be different levels depending on how I file with this. So I'm going to be doing this one. I can see the scratches going horizontally. Now what I'm doing is I'm using the reflection from the lamp, and I can see those horizontal scratches from obviously when I was doing the leveling. Now I'm using this, and I can see that those scratches reduce as I'm filing. Okay, I'm done with the crowning, so I've got a thin center stripe going along each fret. I'm going to start with 600 grit for the tops of these frets, because the grit of sandpaper on my leveling beam is 400. I like to use quite a fine paper for the leveling, simply so that the polishing is not as intense. I'm going to start with the crazy mop of hair, the buffing wheel. Shaved all my hair off. I mean, if I've got 150 grit on my leveling beam, maybe the leveling would be faster, but the polishing would take nearly twice as long. I mean, I'm able to start with 600 grits here and still get a mirror finish on my frets. But if I started with a more intense grit, the polishing would just take a lot longer to get those deeper scratches out. But cool, let's get going with the polishing. So I'm going from 600 grit to a medium grit steel wool. And then I've got 1200 grit. And then lastly I'm going to go with some 0000 grade steel wool, so very, very fine steel wool. Okay, so I've just come back from the buffing wheel after the very fine steel wool. Now the frets are super shiny, so I'm going to take the masking tape off and then glue the nut back in. Okay, so here's the nut again. I'm going to be using Alkaline Professional to glue this in. Fail. Luckily this cleans up really easily with water. Cool, so this will dry overnight. I'm going to bring the body back. I want to just check all the electronics in there and make sure that everything inside there is fine. So I'll set this aside for now. Cool, so I've got the neck back on, and I've cleaned, between the pickups and under the saddles, and well, quite a few places actually. But I'm going to get these strings on now. We've got a set of Elixir 10s. As I've said in the past, Elixirs are my preferred brand of strings. I highly recommend them. Life finds a way. Cool, so I'm gonna just get these through the back. That's difficult to get on camera, but I'm just gonna get these strings through the back, and then I will begin stringing it up. Cool, so like I usually do, put the string over the tuner, then I measure from the tuner 3 fingers, and this length usually gives me 2 winds around the tuner, which is what the desired effect is. the customer wants the Strat bridge floating a little bit. I'll give the high E string 2 semitone bend up. Yeah, let's get that going. Just move the stuff out of the way. So right now it's flat against the body, so I'll release here. All right. So the frets feel really good. I guess the string is very nice and polished. I am going to begin with the setup. I've got the bridge at the height that I wanted so that I can get my 2 semitone bend up, pull up, whatever you want to call it. Now I want to check the neck relief. So put a capo on the first fret. Okay, I'm looking for 0.35 millimeters on here. It's a bit tight, so let me loosen that off a bit. Check the tuning again before I check the truss rod. So on every setup that I do 2 checks. For instance, these are just the ones that are going to be on the video, but when I come back, then I recheck everything with the guitar in the player's position, and then I'm still looking for the same specs. Okay, fantastic. So that's 0.35. The neck relief is where I want it. The Strat, you don't want to go too low with the falsetto strings, because then if you do a full bend it tends to choke out, so don't go too low on a Strat. If you've got a 12-inch fretboard, then you could probably drop it a bit lower than 1.5, but on a Strat I really wouldn't go lower than 1.5 on the high end side, because you won't be able to bend properly. Now I'm going to use this 9.5 radius gauge, because that's the radius of the fretboard. That's looking good. Now we can check intonation. Now that the bridge is where I want it, the neck relief is where I want it, I'm going to tune it up again and then check intonation. Okay, great. Now let's do pickup height. So I like to do 3 millimeters on the low end and 2.5 millimeters on the high end. Okay, so I'm going to leave this for a couple of hours and then recheck everything in the playing position. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. This concludes the video on this USA Fender Strat. If you've got any questions or anything like that, just leave it in the comment section below. If you guys liked this video, please click like and subscribe. I also do have a Facebook page and an Instagram feed if you guys would like to see some more of my content. I'm going to start with the crazy mop of hair, the buffing wheel. Shaved all my hair off Again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a beautiful time. Cheers.